Apparently there's a full moon, which I feel like kind of explains some things.
A lot.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hear Cincinnati. This is a podcast where Cincinnati's best journalists talk about the biggest news of the week. Coming up on the podcast, Kings Island is set to make a big reveal this week. WCPO entertainment reporter Brian Niesz is going to join me to talk about what it is. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about the biggest news of the week. So joining me now on our fantastic panel is community reporter Lucy May.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian.
Thanks for joining us. Also on the panel, boss man Kennan Oliphant.
Hey,
Kennan,
Brian. Nice to be here.
digging the pink tie today. It's bow tie Thursday.
Yeah, it's pink with white polka dots.
Yeah.
I like it.
Digging it.
And a handkerchief.
Yeah. Got a little accent on the handkerchief.
Yeah.
Stylish. And, of course, boss lady Megan Wesley.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. All right, Lucy, kick us off.
I have a Fiona weight update.
Yay!
I know, it's been such a long time. But our good friend Michelle at the zoo emailed me that baby is up to 1,149 pounds.
Whoa.
Yep.
Solid growth there.
Yeah, solid in so many ways. But I don't know if you all have seen the pictures of the little baby cheetah named Chris, K-R-I-S. I assume you pronounce it Chris. Oh my gosh, that little Chris is achingly cute.
I've seen a couple.
So cute.
Did they name it after Kim Kardashian's ex-husband?
I don't
Sorry.
know. I should Google
The weird
that.
stuff I know.
Yeah.
Nothing useful.
Yeah. I don't know. But anywho, so a lot of cute babies at the zoo, including our ever-growing, adorable baby Fiona.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep, that's my zoo update. That's my Fiona update. Feeling good that I got a weight update in there. And I did some journalism this week.
Of course you did.
Yes, so in Lucy's Shameless Self-Promotion Corner.
Bam!
I wasn't paying attention to that one. Sorry, guys.
I just thought you'd be freaked out that
Everybody.
Kennan joined in on
I know,
the band.
what the hell? I was actually looking at this tweet about the Ohio State University copywriting the word "the." Or wait, is it copyright or trademark? I keep getting it confused. Anyway,
It'd be
it's funny.
trademark.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're putting out these T-shirts that say "the," and that's it.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about that. I just know that they got a lot of my money when my daughter was an undergrad there.
Well, I'm kind of like, but there's not another one. Like nobody's like saying that you're not the.
Only saying you're an Ohio State University.
Like there's not another Ohio State University, so I feel like we're good. But whatever. Anyway,
I just hope we don't have to start making the acronym TOSU instead of
my God.
OSU. Because TOSU just
Tosu.
sounds like something like a fungus.
it
that
sounds
you
like
don't
something
want.
I could get at like a sushi counter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So anywho,
We digress.
yeah, go figure. We're digressing. My story that I want to talk about this week is about a new initiative that Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority unveiled on Monday, and it is called the Resource Opportunity Center, or for short, they call it the ROC. And the goal, The goal of this initiative is to help connect residents of two CMHA communities in Winton Hills, both residents at Findlater Gardens and residents at Winton Terrace, to resources at a kind of a one-stop shop in their communities. So the ROC at Findlater Gardens is located at the management kind of rent office. The ROC at Winton Terrace is located at the community center, and the CMHA is partnering with nonprofit organizations and agencies from throughout the region to help connect residents with the resources they need. The goal is to help residents reach self-sufficiency. And CMHA had meetings with residents in the communities over several evenings, and I talked with CMHA CEO Gregory Johnson after their news conference, and he said that one thing that residents really wanted, their number one priority, was parenting classes, which he said, might not be something that most people would think of when they think of these public housing communities, but that's what they really wanted. And so they're teaming up with different providers to provide those, to provide residents with help from Hamilton County JFS will have satellite services there, places that help with employment and preparing for employment like Dress for Success will have satellite locations there. And even the library is going to have opportunities there to help kids with homework while their parents are getting help with other resources. And perhaps most interestingly, CMHA has hired 8 residents of CMHA properties. Not all of them are from Finlater Gardens and Winton Terrace, although a few of them are. But 8 CMHA residents have been hired to be outreach workers. So they're actually going to go door to door in these communities, talk with residents about what services are offered at the Rock locations, and then they're going to help make appointments for them. And the idea behind that is you don't just walk in and have to sit there and wait for 2 hours. You have a time when somebody is dedicated to you and your needs specifically and helps you kind of figure out which pieces of the puzzle you need to get where you want to go with your life and your family. So,
wow.
So it's an interesting initiative. There were lots of people at this news conference on Monday. A gentleman who is the regional field office director for HUD based in Columbus talked about how CMHA was kind of a trailblazer on this front. He said, this was his quote, "Once again, you're ahead of the curve, and there are public housing authorities across the nation who are thinking, what can we do to promote self-sufficiency for our residents?" So I thought this was, I really hope this is a successful initiative for CMHA. Our colleague Emily Maxwell and I have done some reporting on CMHA that has taken a pretty critical look at some of the needs they have and some of the challenges they're facing. So I thought it was really important for us to go look at what they're doing to really help their residents and take a look at this initiative that I hope can help a lot of people. And Gregory Johnson did say also that he views this as kind of a pilot program. Finlater Gardens and Winton Terrace represent the largest communities that CMHA operates for families. He said if it's a success there over time, they'll look at expanding this to other locations throughout Hamilton County.
That's interesting. It's sort of like a family mentoring program. Almost.
Sort of. Yeah. And then the idea is that, there will be people who can really, not every family is going to want the same kind of menu of services. And instead of being prescriptive, the idea is the families know what their goals are and what they want. So they can say, hey, what are you looking to achieve? And here are the different resources we have, and we can help connect you with them. So
personalized mentoring type thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it was last week you talked about the like kind of young adult mentoring program, or like for kids who are age out of the system.
Yes,
still need, I don't remember if that was last week or recently. You talked on the podcast. You talked about it. This is kind of similar in some way.
Yeah, in some ways, you're right. It's kind of like family mentoring, and it's one of the people I talked to for this story is Monica Collins, known as Ms. Mo, who we've written about a number of times and talked about on this podcast. She had been living at Finlater Gardens, left there because of some violence and threats that she and her family were experiencing. And before she lived at Finlater Gardens, she lived at Winton Terrace, where she was president of the Residents Council. And she said she's very confident this can work. She went to these meetings in the evenings to really talk about what residents needed. She said even when she was kind of a one-woman band at Winton Terrace, going door to door herself and trying to connect families with resources, she'd get updated information from nonprofits and give them the information. She said she could really see the difference it could make on even that scale. So she thinks that having these resource centers, these rocks at Finlater Gardens and Winton Terrace, could be a huge help to a lot of families. So she's very hopeful.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Interesting story.
Yeah. Thank you.
Kennan, let's move on to you.
All right.
What's on your mind this week?
2 things. I just found a late entry. But the first one I wanted to talk about was the mystery on the Ohio River.
Yeah.
With the BB Riverboat employee. So a worker of the business disappeared. And there was some question over the past couple of days about, did this worker fall over into the Ohio River, or Did they just simply walk away and not report? I mean, there was a lot of questions about where this person was. And so as of today, as of this recording, a body has been found, but that body has not been identified yet to the public.
Yeah, when did they find? They found it.
They found it just this morning,
yeah,
Thursday morning.
Yeah,
they found the body Thursday morning.
Yeah,
but they still haven't verified any information as if this is the actual person that they are looking for. That this is the BB Riverboat's worker. So,
but definitely a possibility.
Definitely a possibility. I mean,
Definitely
I hope there's not another body just floating in the river
no
that
doubt.
they fish out.
Awful.
You know what I mean? That would be awful.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully that this family can get some resolution behind that.
Yeah, you don't want it to be that guy, but you don't want it to not be that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's bad either way.
Yeah.
And there was also some thought behind the length of time it took to initiate a search for this 37-year-old man.
When did he disappear?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tuesday morning, I believe.
Some of what they've done seem to lend credence to the idea that they thought he just left, because they were talking about looking at all of the cameras everywhere around there, and that they didn't, they checked every one of them during that time to make sure he didn't walk off, and they didn't see him on any of the cameras.
And none of the surveillance cameras had any video of him actually falling into the river.
Got it.
So it was just a
footage
really
of him falling in, and there's also no
footage of him walking away.
Just disappeared.
Right. So he disappeared at about 10:35, but he wasn't reported missing until about noon Tuesday. And that was the most distressing part, according to family members who talked to WCPO off camera.
We're talking about, what, like an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if I just walked out of work, I don't know that I would be an hour and a half and report me missing. I don't know. I think that would be fast.
Well,
but
it
then again,
depends
we
on
don't
the
work
kind
on
of
a
work,
riverboat. Yeah.
right? It depends on the kind of work, and the thing that's so sad. I mean, if I were, I kind of saw that yesterday and put myself in the shoes of those family members. You know, if he did fall off of a ramp or whatever it was, you can kind of envision somebody hitting their head on the way down and then not being able to swim or anything if you're knocked unconscious or something. And so to think of a loved one unconscious, just like floating in the river for an hour and a half before anybody even notices they're missing, it's just got to be devastating. I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
So apparently there was, and here's the other part that I found. I think there's like a number of little mysteries going on with this whole story. The third one is that according to radio traffic among first responders, he was last seen trying to swim toward another BB riverboat vessel and climb up its paddle wheel.
Wait, what? I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, that was on the radio scanner traffic or
Bill
something.
Bernstein, owner of BB Riverboat, said there was no official reports of that employee seen trying to swim or climb out of the water.
Sometimes early reports that may have been over the radio, says that they may
Scanner
have
traffic gets
early on it can be maybe somebody saw something, but they find out later it was not the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there are so many questions that we're asking this Thursday to try to get down to the bottom of what happened, and reaching out to family members, reaching out to OSHA, reaching out to BB Riverboats, and trying to get some sort of answer about how this happened and how this can be prevented next time. Because it may seem like a freak accident, but
if he was trying to climb up a paddle wheel, I would say don't try to climb up a paddle wheel.
Yeah.
Also, shouldn't people who are working on boats and around water be in pairs just for this reason, so that if you happen to fall and hit your head, there's someone who can
Yeah, but it was docked, right? So I'm not sure what BB Riverboats policies are. Yeah, thank you.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and maybe what the job he was doing, we just don't know.
Yeah,
right.
Even if the job that he was hired to do, why he was where he was, that forced him to fall over. It's just strange.
And he still may have just walked off.
Yeah. It's kind of a reminder too that jobs like this can be dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think about when you're on the water, and it's not like walking into an office building. I mean, there are dangers with that kind of work that I think if you don't do that kind of work, you take for granted. And maybe even if you do that kind of work, you don't think about it every day because you're so used to it. But it can be dangerous to work on the river.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Second story that I thought was interesting on a much lighter note. John Matarese went out. There was some concern, maybe even some complaints at some Kroger gas stations about the new chip card readers.
Uh-oh.
I ran into this at the Fort Mitchell Kroger
You did?
gas station. I did, and I was like, what the what?
Yeah, so when you're pumping to get your gas and you put your credit card with your chip in it you have to leave it in there, but it locks it in.
Yeah, it's like a death grip on your credit card.
Yeah,
like you
and
cannot get that sucker
for about
out.
15 to 20 seconds, your card is being read by the machine, and most people are used to putting the credit card in, taking it out real quickly because it says quickly remove on a lot of those machines. But Krogers gas pumps, they lock your card in, and it freaked me out too the first time that I did it, and because I was trying to get my card out, and I'm looking around because now I look crazy trying to pull my card out of the machine, and I'm kicking the machine. I'm like, what's going on here? And then it eventually released, and I thought it was my own doing, but apparently not.
Oh, you thought you were like super strong, like
finally,
I got my
bent this
card
pump
out
to my will.
Yeah, I'm like, I kicked the crap out of this pump so much, it released my card.
That's right. I've beat the robot.
Have you guys never been to an ATM that does
You've
this?
pulled the
Well,
sword
yeah,
from the
but
stone.
I have. But the ATMs are, I mean, like a gas pump, you don't expect it to. I didn't. And here's the other thing that freaked me out. Whenever I put in the old system, it would say debit or credit, and I always pick credit because I didn't want to have to put my PIN number in
That's
there.
right.
Now you have to enter your debit. It won't let your card go. So it said, enter your PIN number. And I was like, screw you, gas pump. I'll go someplace else. And I'm like yanking on my card. I'm like, no, I have to put in my PIN number. So it won't let you choose.
I bet you could have
credit.
put in the wrong pin and it would have just spit it out.
Or chewed it up. I don't know how vicious
I
that
don't- right,
pump is.
exactly.
I could have
Come
probably
on.
hit like cancel and gotten my card back, but in my momentary panic, I did not think of that. But it all worked out as far as I can tell.
Now, here's the thing. Back in the day when we were getting these debit and these ATM cards, if you put in the wrong PIN number too many times, remember, it would eat the card. It
Yeah.
would just suck the card in,
Yeah.
or it would lock the card.
Right. He'd be like, sorry, you don't get this sucker back.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I had flashbacks, almost like PTSD, of them just holding my card.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is
Did that
going
happen
on?
to you?
Yeah. Well, back in the day, I
Right.
hate to tell how old I am. But I
You're
guess
a
that
lot
does
younger
give,
than I am.
I guess that does give it away a little
That
bit.
happened to me too.
I'm old enough to remember it eating my card.
Wow.
But Kroger announced last year that it would be converting 10,000 of its gas pumps at 2,000 of its stations to this EMV, and don't ask me what that acronym is for, chip card technology, and it is supposed to be much safer than just using the magnetic strip that has been around since 1970, and that every skimmer can get seemingly their hands on.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be a lot more secure.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, folks, for you listening to this podcast, if you haven't been to a Kroger to get gas, don't get freaked out.
There's
if
not
it
a
locks your
monster
card
inside
in
the
there.
gas pump eating your credit card.
It will release.
Unfortunately.
As far as
would
we
be
know. As far as we know.
Right.
I haven't seen inside the gas pump. Have you?
No, it reminds me of that Flintstones movie that came out forever ago where they
Oh,
had like
no.
the garbage disposal and there was like a dinosaur under the sink and
Aw,
like just
yeah.
ate all the,
Of all the movies you haven't seen, the Flintstones movie?
That's
don't know.
Megan's
Come
pop
on.
culture movie
Star Wars?
reference for the
No.
I'm not even shocked anymore.
There was something Jim asked yesterday. It had Julia Roberts in it, and she was like faked her own death to get away from an abusive partner or something. And he was all annoyed with me that I hadn't seen it. I'm like, it came out right after Pretty Woman. I Googled it. Why would I
I
have
don't know
seen
that
that? Pretty Woman came out when I was little too.
I mean, I've seen Pretty Woman.
So have I.
Okay.
Who hasn't seen Pretty Woman? Although I did, it's probably in the last 10 years that I saw Pretty Woman.
Speaking of 10 years,
awkward transition.
I don't know.
Everybody drink.
Yeah, I don't know how to get this back on the rails, so I'm just going to say, Megan, it's your turn.
Okay. Sorry for getting us off the rails. So Kristen Swilley did a story last night on the Union Baptist Cemetery, which is one of the only places where Black Cincinnatians could bury their loved ones in 1864, which is when it was first created. So pretty much the entire United States would remain segregated in their graves, would remain segregated at cemeteries for the next 90 or so years. So anyway, fast forward to now, and there's about 15 acres that have become the final resting place for Black Civil War veterans, former slaves, civil rights activists. It houses the remains of Jenny Porter, who's the first ever Black person to receive a PhD from UC, as lots of other people. So anyway, that's why Angelita Jones, who is the chairwoman of Union Baptist, says it's so difficult to see what the cemetery looks like now. There's a lot of tipped over headstones. There's graffiti. It's just in really bad condition.
And some of it's just worn out, and some of it is actually vandalism.
Right. Yeah. So the congregation has about 200 people. It's in Price Hill. And they have been trying to raise money since 2017 to help restore the monuments, clean up the grounds. The church members pay for things like cutting the grass, but they don't have they need about $150,000 to help actually get the cemetery back to, the way it should be. So, she, Angelita, she had said, GoFundMe is great for some, but when you don't really push it and people aren't interested in cemeteries, they don't typically give. So they have, signs up to tell people about it, but they were also just trying to get their story out so that they can show that, they want to take care of their past and, as a way to sort of move forward. So it was a really good story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So important. I'm really glad Kristen did that.
Me too.
She always does such a great job, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she
really does.
Yeah.
Megan, you said you had another story you wanted to talk about, too.
So Northern Kentucky officials think that meth is making a comeback. So you know how there was, heroin, fentanyl, and so we saw these really large upticks in that. And so then we didn't, it's been a while since meth was something that, was
we heard about.
Something that we needed to widely worry about.
And Satara was such a big problem. It kind of eclipses the meth problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So Covington Police Chief Rob Nader said that in 2014 they had 10 arrests. In 2018, they had 185, and they're expecting to have more than that last year. So essentially, what they're seeing is that the price of meth decreased in 2016, meaning it's more available and of a higher quality. So yeah, there's more of it. It's cheaper. People can cook it at their house.
Now, apparently there was a traffic stop in Warren County and Butler County.
Recently?
Oh, yeah.
Recently, where officers pulled over whomever, they found large quantities of meth.
369 grams worth $39,000.
Wow.
Dang.
So that's one of the reasons why they're saying, they're seeing with more traffic stops, more meth busts. So they're, it's maybe more in demand, or, traffickers are using that as a way to get away from, other drugs. So it's it almost sounds cyclical in nature, that, meth was back up in, 2015, 16, and heroin was on the rise, and now meth is coming back. I mean, I just think it ebbs and flows, just depends on what's being looked at most closely, and the drug dealers are adapting to whatever.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a business plan.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Oh, yeah. If you're like, the heroin's beating us, so we need to lower the price and make it a higher quality. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember with fentanyl, when that was first started to be a thing, dealers would give out small samples of it for free.
Yeah.
And then someone would take it and need more and more and more. So they're getting clever, for sure.
Yeah.
My daughter told me this morning that when she grows up, she wants to drive an RV. So now
Just
I'm
like Breaking Bad?
I know. So now I'm like, I feel like that's not a good idea. But RVs for you.
Presumably, she's not going to cook meth in it.
Hopefully not. Although it was funny because I was like, are you going to commute around? Like, are you just going to drive to lunch in an RV? I mean, cool.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Parking would be a bummer, though.
Yeah.
Especially my kid trying. Oh. Self-driving cars. That's what
Yeah,
is gonna.
that's true.
I am gonna just like. That's gonna be in place by the time my kids are 16. Gonna go with that.
Keep hope alive, Megan.
Yes. Yes. All right, Brian. What did you want to talk about?
Wow. That was nice.
That was a reversal. I love
Yeah,
that.
it was. So I'm going to talk about some good stuff. It's August, and hopefully the weather's going to be fantastic all weekend. So I want to talk about every week. Brian Maines puts out these things to do over the weekend, and it occurred to me we never talk about them on here. A lot of people
That's
listen
true.
to the podcast on the weekend.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this on the weekend, you're thinking, I wonder what me and my buddies are going to do today or tomorrow or tonight. Here's some ideas.
Good thinking, Brian.
Yeah. Over the Top Fest. That is at Fretboard Brewing Company.
Oh.
They've partnered with area first responders and Bootsy Collins.
Yes.
And so this festival kicks off Friday night. And it's from 6 p.m. Friday and kind of lasts all weekend, I think. Noon to midnight on Saturday. So Friday and Saturday. So you can check that out.
Bootsy Collins is the coolest. I did a profile of him at another news organization a number of years ago and got to go to his house. And
Yeah.
this was crazy. He's a huge I Love Lucy fan. Like he's got
Wow.
lots
Oh my
of,
God, of course.
lots of
I would not have pegged
paraphernalia.
that.
I know.
That's amazing.
It's like I saw these posters. I was like, what the what? But yeah.
That's
yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good. Interruptions are welcome. So the fourth annual Birds of a Feather Music and Arts Festival rocks Tornhill Farm and Drag Strip in Kenton County.
That is intriguing.
Yeah, headliners include Goose, Rumple Mountain Boys, the Aqueducts, and Disco. Those are all bands I've never heard of.
Goose Rumple Mountain Boys are my favorite.
Are you being facetious?
Yes.
Dogs are permitted.
What about cats?
What about kids?
I assume kids are permitted. It's like a camping thing. It's like a camping bluegrass thing, I think.
Oh, it's a Walgreens. Maybe it's different, but I was at Walgreens last night behind a lady who was buying tie-dye stuff, and she told the clerk that she was going to a hippie festival and she was going to tie-dye some stuff to
Yeah.
try to sell it. I wonder if that's it.
That's probably right.
Yeah.
We've talked about RVs that you can bring your RV. There's RV
Yeah.
parking and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
That does
Hope
sound
everybody
something.
buys some tie-dye stuff from my new neighbor.
Let's see. DJ Diamond is going to be on Fountain Square Friday night.
Yes.
Toby Keith is going to be in town on Friday night.
Oh, man. Even though his Toby Keith's I Love You Bar and
know.
Grill was such a massive failure on the banks.
So don't drive by wherever that is. Is it at Riverbend?
Toby Keith is going to be at BB&T Arena.
Oh, okay. So there will be lots of like really young girls with way too short shorts and cowboy boots and very drunk people in the backs of pickup trucks.
I have some buddies that would really appreciate that. So
well,
I will
I'm
send
sure
them
that
there.
they would. But I have my daughter in my head now,
Yeah,
so I'm just
yeah.
like, dear God.
But there is a show at Riverbend as well. That is Skillet and Seven Dust. That's at PNC Pavilion Friday night. Little G from Silk is at Washington Park Friday. Lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to do. The Ring of Fire, the ensemble of actors celebrating the music of Johnny Cash. That is at Memorial Hall on Friday and Saturday night. My friend Beth Harris is involved in that.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Some good local musicians.
Break a leg, Beth.
Another Riverbend show, Korn and Alice in Chains. If you're a 90s, grew up in the 90s like I did.
Corn with a K.
Korn with a K and a capital R.
Are there lots of screaming?
Yeah. So I thought it'd be nice to talk about some good news stuff. The other thing I want to give a shout out to is something that I just saw on social media this morning. Is the kid who broke the record for hiking that Emily Maxwell did.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't looked at it yet because I just saw it a little bit before I came in here, but I want to watch that too. I didn't have a chance to get a full report on it.
Yeah, so he walked the Ohio River Buckeye Trail, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And it goes all the way, so it touches every corner of the state, essentially.
Oh, wow.
And he's the youngest kid ever to have done that. He's 17.
Wow.
So, and also while he was doing that was all the crazy tornadoes. And so there was literally tornado sirens going off, and he's in the middle of the
Wow.
woods and ran to some random house and just pounded on the door, and they let him in, and he was okay. So
That's
Wow.
nice.
it's quite the story. I know.
Man,
That's
I bet
wild.
his parents were pooping their pants.
Oh, they were.
Yeah,
yes. She talked to his parents too, and they were like, Yeah.
He left after graduation. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, right
He
after high school
graduated
graduation,
and then he's been hiking all summer.
Yeah.
Oh,
It does seem fun.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do it by myself. I'd get really bored.
I mean, I'm not a hiker, so
Neither am
I am. I
not
would
something
love it.
I would do. But
Yeah, I'm a lover, not a hiker.
yeah. I mean, that's if I were to be a hiker, that's something on my own. Yeah. I need to watch that video.
You know you want to go backpacking with us.
Never.
It's
Fun.
Bow
You
tie backpacking.
you have to get a pack that's
RV.
like...
I would do the RV if I was camping I would do the RV. Glamping. We talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, we
Lord
have.
almighty.
So we're recording this part of the podcast Thursday morning on the 15th. So we do not yet know what the big announcement's going to be. But guys, Kings Island.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
So
What's it going to be?
we pretty much know it's going to be a roller coaster.
Yeah, it better not be antique cars again.
Oh, my God.
God.
You don't like antique cars?
Well,
I mean,
they made
that
a
was
big
so
deal.
overhyped.
Yeah, that was
but I
overhyped.
tell you what, kudos to Chad.
I know, Chad's a genius.
Yeah, he played that right. I was like, whoa, what's it? Antique cars. Yeah.
He's a very good
Remember that
PR
ride
guy.
we used to have? Now we have it again.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Chad.
The one I want him to bring back is the one that has the snail at the end, where the snail says, "Have a happy day."
Oh, that was the Smurf ride, wasn't it?
This is before it was the Smurf ride. This is before there were Smurfs. There was
okay.
this, it was kind of like Kings Island's version of It's a Small World,
yeah.
and
Oh.
that snail moved its head in
Yeah, I
sort of
remember
this
the snail.
creepy demonic way.
remember the
and
snail.
It
That's
looked
really weird.
Sort of
Judgmental snail.
Yeah, judgmental snail, a little bit psychedelic. Yeah.
Huh.
Well, we do know it's going
happy
to be a
day.
roller coaster.
Yeah, we
We know that. Like, we know it's not going to be something
we
lame.
flew Chopper 9 over the place that manufactures the steel.
That's
the
why we
tracks.
have a chopper.
That's exactly right. So we can see all these tracks that have been made that are probably going to get trucked in very soon after they make this announcement.
And supposed to
Yeah.
be taller than the Eiffel Tower as well.
Oh wow!
The,
really? I
the
didn't hear
Kings
that.
Island Eiffel
Kings
Tower,
Island,
not the
yeah,
real
yeah.
Eiffel
Not the-
Tower.
yeah.
That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
The
That
Kings
thing-
Island Eiffel Tower is pretty tall.
It's
It's a third of the
it
size.
scares
I think.
the F out of me because it's like you go up there and you're like, oh my God, this thing was built when?
What, the Eiffel Tower? thing?
Yeah. I was
Just
recently.
don't ever
That's
go-
the thing at
don't
Kings
ever-
Island that scares you.
Yeah.
Of all the
Yeah.
things that are
No, it
designed
really does.
to make you crap
Don't
your
ever,
pants.
don't ever go in
That's
the real Eiffel Tower.
I'm not
'cause
allowed.
It's
I
much
have,
taller.
I have,
and much older.
and it's much prettier. But I'm not allowed to go on roller coasters anymore because of my
'Cause of your
back.
back, yeah.
So I just have to do things like that. But I went on the observation deck at Summit Park, which is relatively new, like a week ago, and it felt much safer. Sorry, Chad. It's just like, things that are that tall that were built in the 70s probably need like new metal or something at some point. I don't know.
don't
It
know.
just looks not sturdy. Maybe I'm just.
I mean,
I
the wooden
think they
roller coaster's
maintain
been
it.
there for
Yeah.
a good long time.
I don't
Even
go on
the-
any of
the
these things,
suspension
clearly.
bridge was built a lot. I mean, it's got a lot of metal.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that most attendees of Kings Island are okay with roller coasters, and therefore probably okay with the Eiffel Tower.
Probably.
And if they're not, they can ride the antique cars.
Yes, like me.
At 2 miles an hour.
Right.
I think that wraps us up this week. Thanks for chatting with me, guys.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we're going to find out what Kings Island's big announcement actually is when I sit down Friday and chat with WCPO entertainment reporter Brian Niesz. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The truth is finally out there. Kings Island has finally announced what the hype and speculation has been for at least a year now. And here to talk with me about it is WCPO entertainment reporter Brian Niesz. Brian, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So we've been talking about what Kings Island might be announcing. They've been hinting at it for a long time. We recorded our panel on Thursday and chatted about what we think it might be. And I think I was gung-ho that it was going to be Antique Cars 2.
Yes.
But that's not what it was. Tell us all about this big announcement. So you were in attendance last night for the announcement at Kings Island.
Yeah, and they did a fantastic job of announcing it. There were probably 2,000 to 3,000 people there in attendance waiting for this announcement. And, of course, it was what most people had kind of been guessing all along. It was a gigacoaster. It's only the seventh. It's only going to be the seventh in the world. and it's called Orion. And for those people who don't know the definition of a gigacoaster,
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
it is a coaster with about a 300-foot or higher drop. So unlike some of the old last generation coasters where they relied more on like inversions and loops and stuff like that for the thrills, this one is all about height and speed. It goes about 91 miles an hour, and you've got a 300-foot drop.
Right off the bat, you go up and then you drop 300 feet pretty much straight down, and that's what starts the
And then you
experience.
carry your stomach in your throat probably the rest of the way. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the build up to this, because this has been in the works for a long time. And Kings Island's been teasing about it for a little bit too, trying to pump up some hype. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so you were teasing and kind of joking a little bit about the antique cars,
Right.
which was last year's announcement. They always do these announcements towards the end of their regular park season.
Sure.
Last year, there was already rumors and a little bit of buzz that, maybe it's going to be a new coaster, and people were really excited. And then, of course, it was antique cars. They're lovely, they're nice, they're nostalgic, but, there's like, they're putting around cars, whatever.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were gone.
Yeah. And but then the rumors continued to persist. Actually, consumer reporter John Matarese really got into this too, really kind of researching the details. And Kings Island, they are always tight-lipped. I mean, you will get like a trickle of rumors and stuff, but they will tell you nothing until the announcement, which is what they did here. They erected a fence around the former location of Firehawk, which they tore down last year, and which is where the new Giga Coaster is going to go.
Right.
So the fence went up, and then all of a sudden, day by day, these little posters started going up on the fence.
Yeah, tell me about the posters, because it was kind of a riddle.
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting marketing approach. Part of it was, so it was different rides, and they were all rides that they either had like a space theme or they were a coaster, and they each had a letter on them, and the letters eventually spelled out. It was the first letter of Orion's song, "It's the End of the World as We Know It."
Okay.
So, and when Orion was finally revealed, it all came together. The space component was, of course, Orion, the name, and it was like this was the end of one world, the beginning of another, in terms of having this huge giga coaster at the park, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is. They're billing it as the highest, fastest, longest coaster at Kings Island ever.
Yes. So just the stats on it, it comes in just at the right height for a giga coaster. It's at 300. It's 300-foot drop. It's going to have 8 hills in it along the ride, and then the track is over 5,321 feet long. So it's going to be the longest and highest steel coaster the park has ever seen.
Wow.
And like I said, it's only the 7th one in the world. The first Giga Coaster, ironically enough, was built by Cedar Fair, who's now the parent company for Kings Island.
Okay.
It was built in 2000 at Cedar Park up in Sandusky, and that was the Millennium. It was the Millennium Force. So and that's a little bit taller, but it was built in like 2000.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would you were at the event? And they're selling merch already, right?
Yes.
What's that like?
There's of course T-shirts, ball caps, hats, all kinds of. And I made a joke about it last night as after the announcement was made. The ride is supposed to open in the spring of next year, but there's already lines. I mean, the line was incredibly long for the merchandise, and the coaster's not even built yet.
The line for the coaster started last night.
Yes, it did.
It's gonna be a long wait.
Yes, it will be.
So, but it should be up and running by spring. When they open next spring in 2020.
Yeah, that's the plan. Supposedly, all the tracks and all the components of it have been fabricated. It was actually designed and I think kind of built in Switzerland by a particular company. It's already been shipped over here, and they're starting to put the pieces together, and they've already laid the groundwork for it over the past few months.
Yeah, I want to jump back to you were saying John Matarese has been kind of investigating this, so to speak. We actually saw from the chopper some of the pieces that we can now say are definitely for this roller coaster, right?
Oh yeah. It was kind of hard. And I mean, that was the one thing. It's a little bit easier to keep a secret about antique cars or maybe even a smaller coaster like Mystic Timbers. Of something of this scale and size, it was nearly impossible. There were also the park had to file blueprints with the city of Mason for the construction.
Yeah, Project X.
Project X is what it was called. That's what it was going under. But, all those pieces came together, and it was pretty obvious what they were doing, but Kings Island did still did a pretty good job still of keeping that enthusiasm and at least a little bit of mystery. We also had a couple guesses on what his name was. There were 2 trademark names filed by Cedar Fair. One of them was Orion. The other one was called Polaris. So you didn't know what the name of the coaster was going to be until it was announced.
Both star astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah.
The word I'm trying to say. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, they held some of the mystery, but I mean, everything we thought it was, it turned out to be, and I couldn't imagine how disappointed people would have been if it would have been we're redoing Smurfland or whatnot.
We were just talking about the former Smurfland with the big snail, the judgmental snail who was shaking his head as you left.
I have a young nephew now, and the scariest thing at the park for him at like 3 or 4 years old was there was a giant Snoopy statue there.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it terrified him. It was taller than he was, and it freaked him out. So,
when was the last time that Kings Island introduced a new coaster?
It was 2 or 3 years ago. It was Mystic Timber. So,
okay. The example you were just telling me about.
Yeah, and it was a much smaller, shorter coaster. Comparatively, it was at least its drop was within like 100, it was like a 100-foot drop. I mean, it was significantly less. By comparison, Diamondback, which is the last really big major steel coaster they introduced a few years ago, that peaks out at about 216, 215 feet high. So
it's another 100 feet.
Yeah, it's just about another 100 feet for the drop on this new ride.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the video. There's several promo videos that Kings Island has released that show the ride. One shows the point of view perspective from the ride. What was the general consensus on that?
The crowd, there was just a lot of oohing and awing when they saw it, especially that initial drop. I mean, just the vertigo you get just seeing the drop. So there was a lot of excitement about that. And it looks like a fun ride. I'm a fan of steel coasters too, so they're always a little bit more smooth, a little less jerking than some of the older wood coasters. So it should be a lot of fun for anyone who's not afraid to basically plummet 300 feet down.
Yeah, that's a big if.
That is a big if.
Tell me about the crowd that was there. You said there were a lot of oohs and ahs. Are these season pass holders? Are these roller coaster nerds from around the country who've come? What kind of vibe did you get from that?
I would say there probably was a fair mix, but I would say there was the dominant group that I spoke with that were there. There were people who have a strong passion for roller coasters.
Okay.
And I'm sure some of that's by design too. That's the other thing that Kings Island does well is they really engage that roller coaster enthusiast crowd.
That super fan crowd.
Yeah. And I know the past events I've been to, actually Mystic Timbers, they have a roster of super fans who stay in touch with the park, and they invite them, in for like preview rides and stuff like that. So I'm sure there'll be some lucky few people who will get to come and ride Orion before anybody else.
Sort of like influencers.
Yeah,
almost.
exactly. Being people just with a huge passion for it, and there's a crowd for everything, and there's definitely a big crowd for roller coasters.
I called them nerds before, and I say that in a loving way. I'm a nerd about a lot of things myself. I think you are too.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of ways you can define someone as a nerd. And I definitely fit that bill too.
Should we expect any other reveals about this, or any other questions about this that we haven't answered yet, or Kings Island hasn't answered yet?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think that they laid it all out there last night. They build up the tension, and now people know, and now it's just a matter of the only things I could see possibly kind of derailing or whatever would be if we had like a really bad winter, or if there was something in construction, because it's still got to be built and put together and then tested and everything else. But if everything goes according to plan, I don't foresee any other surprises, and I think Cedar Fair's pretty prepared as well, because the one thing they also mentioned last night in the review was this is like a $30 million project for the park, which is literally one of the most expensive endeavors that they've ever.
Yeah, they compared it to the actual initial investment to open. Back in the 70s.
I'm sure at $30 million probably didn't equate for the
I'm not sure if that's
the cost of
inflation,
inflation in the 70s, but it was technically about the same dollar amount.
Wow, that's crazy. Do you think you'll be one of those people that gets invited to do an early ride next spring?
I would love to, and I hope so. And if anybody at Kings Island is out there listening in terms of invite list, I'd be more than willing to be put on it. So
I think that's a call out to Chad Showalter.
It is. Chad's a great guy, and I'm
friend
sure
of the pod.
friend of the pod, and I'm sure he'll keep me in mind. I've had the chance to ride. I rode Mystic Timbers on a preview, and actually was one of the last people to ride Firehawk last year before they took it apart.
What about the antique cars? Did you get a preview on the antique cars last year?
You know what? Actually, I could have, but I was on a little bit of a time crunch that day, so I didn't get to ride. You
got the invite, but not the actual experience.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Brian, thanks for joining me. Thanks for going out to that event last night. It looked like a good time. I watched it on the Facebook Live that we did, and I saw some of your Instagram posts from our WCPO Instagram account. That was interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was a well-executed reveal and kickoff, and just a way to create buzz. So kudos to KI for doing that.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Thanks again.
Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of Hear Cincinnati. I want to thank again Brian Maines and also our fantastic panel, Lucy May.
Hey, thanks for having me. Congratulations on your Emmy.
Oh, thank you. Congratulations on your Emmy.
Thanks.
Aw, go guys.
A lot of Emmy love.
Oh yeah, we also won overall excellence for our station.
Yep.
Go us.
And also thanks to boss man Kennan Oliphant. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
And of course, boss lady Megan Wesley.
Thanks for having me.
If you heard anything on this podcast you'd like to read more about, you can find links to that in the description of this podcast. And as always, we encourage you to subscribe if you want to hear everything about Cincinnati. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, etc. That wraps up this episode of Hear Cincinnati. Thanks for listening.